Fitness with Awakened Body, and this is your step by step video guide for your first bite of food during your 40-day seasonal cleanse. At Awakened Body, we take on at least one seasonal cleanse a year for two reasons. First, cleansing is the very best way to relocate the body in its proper place in nature. We're meant to live in balance with the ebbs and flows of this planet, guided by an internal wisdom that's meant to keep us healthy, feeling vital, pulsing with life. But for many of us in the modern world, we've lost our way with that. And so we cleanse in order to remember. Second, taking on a 40-day cleansing journey is the best way to deepen your spiritual practice year round. Commit for these 40 days to meeting as many of the moments in your life from a place of open presence. Life gives and you receive. So we're going to do that now with our first bite of food. So for this mindful eating exercise, during your 40-day seasonal cleanse, I want to encourage you to take your first bite of food as a mindful eating exercise. So that's what we're going to do right now. However, am going to do it with a date. So dates are allowed on the cleanse, not too many, but they are allowed. And as you cleanse, what you'll find is that your relationship to this little fruit is going to change. So first of all, I'm holding a Majul date, and I live in the Middle East where we have easy access to sweet, soft Majul dates. This is fresh. This is appetizing. I'll be honest, when I lived in America, I did not like dates. This is a beautiful fruit, and it's allowed, but it is full of natural sugar. On the first day of your seasonal cleanse, eating this date might feel all kinds of things. If you don't like dates, it might feel yucky. But the point is, it might feel normal. It might not be the sweetest thing you've eaten in a week. But as you deepen into your cleansing process, by the time you're through your elimination week and you're done with week one of the cleanse, eating a date should be a tremendous experience because it is so full of sweetness. So, whenever we engage with mindful eating, but especially something that is so full of sugar, we want to start from a posture of awe that a date palm, unlike me, knows how to transform sunlight into sweetness, goodness, which are the sweetness is we represent it as calories. Calories is a word that has a lot of baggage for us, and yet calories just means literally energy, which is fuel for my body to do my life. So the date palm knows how to transform sunlight into the energy that I need to do my life. And that is miraculous. And every time we take a bite of food, we're locating ourselves inside of that miraculous flow, that miraculous process. The reason I'm using a date right now is that for a lot of us, the cleanse is going to wake us up to the fact that we are addicted to all kinds of foods. Foods that society classes as addictive, like alcohol or caffeine, which you're taking a break from during your cleanse, but also foods that society classes as much, doesn't really class as addictive per se, but are addictive drugs to the same degree as caffeine and alcohol are addictive drugs, namely for some of us sugar, for some of us fats. And being with that process is part of the deep work of the cleanse. And I know for myself in my early years cleansing, there were, for me, it arises at night, my addiction to sugar, my cravings for sugar. So there were nights that I could sit with it and I would spend a full hour stuck in craving sweetness and just being with it and being curious about what is this thing that is arising. I did not know I had an addiction, and yet here I clearly do to sugar. And then there were nights that I cheated, and there were cleanses that I did everything I could to make my my permitted sweet foods. And then there were cleanses that I really let myself over the course of the journey shed that addiction. And that was a tremendous lifelong gift. So the reason I'm using a date today is because as you work with food as addiction, eating one date a day can, believe it or not, become enough. Enough. Just this unbelievable, orgasmic, full body experience of ingesting sweetness, enough sweetness to tide you over for the day. So let's do it like that right now. So you have your first bite of food in front of you. It can be a sip of your smoothie. You might decide for that it's that this feels more meaningful to do with your solid meal that you're doing before lunch, whatever feels right. I'm gonna do it today with a date. So, always with mindful eating in Jewish tradition, we need to know the story of the food itself. So, my first bite is of something that grew on a tree. And so, I'm going to turn to my blessings page and my support packet, and I can be on the page for the blessing over foods that grew on a tree. And I just begin to call to mind the journey that this food took, beginning with its source in sunlight, and just having a sense of curiosity of where it might have grown, knowing that this grew on a tree. This medjool date, I know it grew within 100 miles of where I'm currently located. I don't know if it grew in Israel or not. Equally, it could have grown in Jordan. But just having an awareness of the earth and the beautifully complex tree, that just like I am a tree of life, this grew on a tree of life, and the sunlight and water that nourished it. And then, as I'm ready, I'm going to just take a bite sized portion. I'm going to say my blessing, and then I'm going to take my first bite and hold on chewing. And I'm going to do this with you in a moment, so I'll just explain the step by step, and then I'll do it with you so I don't have to talk while chewing. I'm going to take my first bite and I'm going to hold before I chew. And I'm going to begin to notice that the palate is designed to taste different flavors in different locations. So as soon as I take my first bite, there'll be an explosion of flavor, primarily in one area of my mouth. Uh, Depending on what I'm eating, I'll salivate to different degrees. And there are digestive enzymes, primarily for carbohydrates, which we're staying away from during the cleanse, but there are digestive enzymes in the mouth, in the saliva. So I'll feel that part of my body activate. And once I've had that sensation, then I'll begin to slowly chew. I'll play with chewing in different areas of my mouth. When I've really chewed, during the cleanse, we practice chewing our food. And we'll notice that a regular bite you can easily chew 40 times before swallowing. Some of us, the way that our complex relationships to food manifest is that we don't remotely chew our food. We bite and swallow and bite and swallow and bite and swallow. And that's an expression of anxiety that's arising during eating. And this is a wonderful time to have awareness of that and to work with that. So I'm going to chew my food well. And then when I feel that I just can't chew anymore, I'm going to swallow and I'm going to track the sensation of the food entering my body. When we eat according to the Jewish wisdom tradition, the last step of the eating process is dropping into a sense of satisfaction. And so once I can no longer feel the state traveling down my esophagus, and it's just beginning to enter the stomach where I don't have any nerves at all, then my job is to drop in to a brief meditation, feeling satisfied, practicing feeling satisfied. For many of us, eating and feeling satisfied, they just don't go together. Eating is fraught. There's all kinds of cultural messaging that comes in around food. And the more artificial the foods we're habituated to eat, the harder it is to have this sense of satisfied when we're done eating them. And so I finish my process by just practicing being satisfied, working, setting my intention and working on having just pure gratitude for this sunlight that became sweetness, which are calories that are energy to charge me up for this day. I'm going to have the power to do my day, to live my life, thanks to this sunlight turned sweetness, which we call calories. So let's do it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri ha'etz. And when you've really felt the food in your mouth, you've felt its texture, you've taken an inhale to engage smell, just slowly begin to chew. And just noticing the different sensations, the different parts of the palate, where you taste what. Noticing the flavor palette of the whatever it is you've chosen to eat. And then as you're ready, swallowing, tracking the bite down as far as you can feel it. And when you can't feel it anymore, at least 5 breaths inside of gratitude, of satisfied. Of course, our sense of satisfaction will feel different at the end of the meal when we feel full of our food. We can practice now for 5 breaths before we go on with the rest of the meal. And as we say in the Hebrew, just like in the French, bete avon, may you eat and enjoy this meal with a sense of appetite, which means gratitude, a healthy meeting of the desire that arises in our bodies to take in nourishing food, a meeting between that desire and the blessing, the gift, the satisfying of that desire that comes like a gift from Mother Earth directly to our mouth. Energy, satisfaction, yumminess. So, b'te'avon.